since we did lose, or let's say AFK on my previous game, I'm going to make a game now instead. So more 2 hours. I'm going to make a game for 2 hours. Let's see. Enough scripts. Uh, 嗯 if 2 hours, then 120 seconds, I 120 minutes. Let's do the first project. Is it the first project or the copied one? Let's see. Oh, not this. Copied first project. Let's see if this is it. Yes, it is it. If we did play this, okay. The problem is, I guess, is it's not even working if I do this, but I guess it's okay for me. But I need to hmm, collision, how to collision collect with each other, and that makes it, if it open, if this will on and will collide with the other one, then that's where I will make some kind of health damage. So let's see. Country first. No, and player first, and script. Let's see. This is what I learned on the how to use animation tree. And next is for me to, let's say, hitbox area entered. Hmm. The problem is it will not identify the health. So how can make the tree go on some kind of player health? Hmm. Right, let's see. Hmm. Let's see how to use hitbox and box. Let's see this. Wait. Hmm. Right here.
Easier. Let's name this class as a hitbox. Let's create a new variable and let's export it. This will be called damage of the type int, and this will identify how many damage is given by this hitbox. Let's start with the default as 1. And the same way as in the health, I want to create this as a property, and this property will be connected to the functions, and the functions will be set damage and get damage. Let's implement these functions. Of course, get damage is easier to implement, so let's implement it first. But in this component, damage is also really easy. We just need to assign the value to damage. And that's all when it comes to the hitbox. Let's move to the hardbox for now. Let's set the class name, and this will be the hardbox. And the hardbox will emit the signal anytime when the damage is taken. So let's call this signal received damage, and let's specify how much damage is received. And one more thing I need to set before we get to the functions is the health variable, which will represent the health component. So if you use the hardbox, that means that you need to also implement health somewhere in the node, because hardbox need the health to just give the damage. You need to have some health to deal damage. You cannot just have a hardbox and don't have a health, because this hardbox will do nothing. So we need to have a health of type health. We created earlier, and I want to export this because I want to async this manually. Of course, we can add the health with this statement of with get node, but probably I don't know the exact path of the health, because some nodes can have different structures than the others. This is because I want to use the export here. I will show you later why this is a good idea and how to use it. And I need a function called on area enter.
Wait.
connect area entered. I'm going to connect it to this node. And
Wait. No. Okay, let's continue.
I'm going to call on area entered when a hitbox hits this hurt box. And you're going to see a couple of interesting tricks here. I'm going to define that function, and it's going to receive an area node through the area entered signal. Now we can do better than that. We can say, I want to receive a hitbox, and the type of that is going to be my hitbox. Why do we do that? Well, this will make it so if anything other than a node of type myHitbox touches this area, the hitbox will have a value of null automatically. And so we can safely do something like if hitbox is equal to null, we return from the function and avoid bugs this way. And then if we have a proper hitbox, we can deal damage. There are a couple of ways we can go about that. We could emit a signal, but instead we're going to use the owner property. The owner of a node is the top node of a scene it's in. So if we go to the enemy scene and we create a hurt box here, no matter where we create it in the tree, the owner will be the enemy node. So it's common to use the owner property when you create nodes that work as components. I'm going to do things like this. If the owner has a function, has a method called take damage, then we're going to call it like this, owner.takeDamage. And we're going to pass the hitbox.damage value to that function. This is called doc typing. No matter the kind of node that is at the root of the scene, as long as it has a function called take damage, we can call that function. right? And we won't get errors, hopefully. This allows you to create these layers and masks type. You can already go in the editor, press Ctrl A and search. First, we're going to create a variable to represent the base damage of our hitbox, because the hitbox is responsible for dealing damage. Then press Ctrl, and as soon as the skull the is to copy and click Create to create. First thing that we want to do is to set the type to extend. First thing that we want, double click hitbox, which I'm going to click New Script and enter the script. What we want to do is the basic kind of node that detects physics, but they are perfect for things like hitboxes and hurtboxes. Then to create nodes based on this script, we have to create a new line that uses the class underscore name keyword, followed by the name we want for our node. And as soon as you've done that, you can already go in the editor, press Ctrl A and search for my hitbox, and you'll see the node is right there. All right, so let's keep coding. We want to do two things. First, we're going to create a variable to represent the base damage of our hitbox, because the hitbox is responsible for dealing damage. So it should hold the damage. And then we're going to change the default properties of that node, and that's why we're making a script. We'll keep it simple in this video, but you can build upon what we'll do here. Now, let me create an area 2D node to talk about physics, layers, and masks. If you go to the inspector on the right and expand the collision category, layers and masks appear. These control what this node will collide with. And for our hitboxes and hurtboxes, what we want is for them to just detect one another. Precisely, we want hurtboxes to detect hitboxes, and that's it. And so typically you change these layers and masks to filter the collisions in your game, right? We named the first layers in this project for you. So layer 1, we called it the game world, and layer 2 is going to be for hitboxes, right? And so what we want precisely is for the hitbox to be on layer 2 and to have no mask. Why? Because the layer represents the category physics objects this node is part of, and the mask represents the category of physics objects it will detect. That's the general idea behind these two. So if I go back to my hitbox script, I'm going to do these two things. Collision layer, I want to set it to layer 2. Now, you have to be careful about that, because collision layers and masks work with binary numbers. And so you want to set it to layer 2, you want to assign the value 2 to the collision layer property. Now, the way you know which value to use is by hovering over the collision layer. You can see it says bit 1, the value is 2, but it worked with powers of 2, so bit 3, or bit 2 rather, would be value 4, and so on. Then it gets to 8 and 16 and so on. Right? And for the collision mask, sorry, I'm going to get back to my hitbox script. And for the collision mask, we want a value of 0, which will turn off all the collision masks. So that's our hitbox script done. Then
I should make hitboxes for myself also. So I'm going to make one. Is it laggy already? No, it's not. Create new script. My hitbox. Area 20. This is the other one. Area 2D. Hitbox damage. Hitbox. No class name. It's not my class. Search first. Stretching first. I need to stretch because I'm feeling sleepy when I'm going like this. Okay. I not talk this anymore. But again, function. Only one sign. One equal. Let's
So that's our hitbox script done. Then we need the hurt box, the one that we will attach to enemies to receive damage. For that, right-click on the practice folder again, create a new script, and we're going to call it my hurt box. This one is also going to extend from area 2D. And we're going to give it a class name of my hurt box to be able to create nodes based on this script. Okay, so this one will work a bit differently. We're going to create an init function, and we want it to detect the hitboxes and to receive damage. For that, we're going to set the collision layers and masks to complement the hitbox. We'll say collision layer is equal to 0, and collision mask is going to be equal to 2. This will allow this node to detect my hitbox. Then we will use a signal so that when a hitbox hits a hurt box, we detect that and deal damage. I'm going to add the ready function and call connect area entered. I'm going to connect it to this node, and I'm going to call on area entered when a hitbox hits this hurt box. And you're going to see a couple of interesting tricks here. I'm going to define that function, and it's going to receive an area node through the area entered signal. Now we can do better than that. We can say, I want to receive a hitbox, and the type of that is going to be my hitbox. Why do we do that? Well, this will make it so if anything other than a node of type my hitbox touches this area, the hitbox will have a value of null automatically. And so we can safely do something like if hitbox is equal to null, we return from the function and avoid bugs this way. And then if we have a proper hitbox, we can deal damage. There are a couple of ways we can go about that. We could emit a signal, but instead we're going to use the owner property. The owner of a node is the top node of a scene it's in. So if we go to the enemy scene and we create a hurt box here, no matter where we create it in the tree, the owner will be the enemy node. So it's common to use the owner property when you create nodes that work as components. I'm going to do things like this. If the owner has a function, has a method called take damage, then we're going to call it like this, owner.take damage. And we're going to pass the hitbox.damage value to that function. This is called doc typing. Owner of a node
Where does
connect area enter masks. Create an area and hitbox fractions in and do two things. First, we're going to create layers and detect boxes. Also, two things. Collision layer, I want to set it to layer 2. Now, you have to be careful about that because collision layers and masks work with binary numbers. And so you want to set it to layer 2. You want to need the hurt box. This one will work to add an area node through the area entered signal. Now we can do better than that. We can say, I want to receive a hitbox. And the type of that is going to be my hitbox. Why do we do that? Well, this will make it so if anything other than a node of type my hitbox touches this area, the hitbox will have a value of null automatically. And so we can safely do something like if hitbox is equal to null, we return from the function and avoid bugs this way. We can go the top create a hurtbox enemy, the take damage, then we're going to call it like this: owner dot
Where does it?
to
Where does
will
it
allow this
comes
node
from?
to detect and mask box so that when we know where we create, as long as this sort scene, hurt box
No,
monsters
it
or
has
anything,
some kind of method already.
define that take damage function to attack that scene, because as the key down to the selection and the do to to attach a hurt box to them, and
Okay, let's try the hurt box. Also on area 2D. Class name of my hurt box. Function of ready. Connect this on area entered and serve on sample. On area entered. So
then they fully this it's in. So if button a hitbox at the ready function, a hurt box, we detect that and deal damage. I'm going to add the ready function and call connect area entered. I'm going to connect it to this node, and I'm going to call on area entered. See better than going to be more. Anything
then function on area entered. My hitbox
hitbox something like and avoid bugs this way.
Hitbox is equal to my hitbox is equal
And then if we have a proper hitbox, we can
full if hitbox is equal to null, current script, right? It's full state problem.
deal damage. There are a couple of good scene. The only collision shape called animation player to store on a whole number hit. We prepared a hit and you'll see it in the output console. Then you can go back to the practice scene, press space, you're going to attack the enemies. Now, if you walk over the enemies, you'll see them take that box whenever we're not attacking. And we typically do that in the game's animation. So go back to click and drag on the zoom icon to zoom in the gray area node. This is going to offer. So at the start of this will be enabled around the end of the animation. Click, and if you play the animation, you will see now we also need it to be disabled at the start of the game. And to do that, we have to click the animation drop-down menu and go to the reset animation that was automatically created for us. It stores the default state of Node. You want to click the disabled key in the collision shape track, and in the inspector, you want to turn it on. You want the shape.
Let's create the hitbox itself. I want to create this as a property, and this property first. But in this component, damage is also really easy. We just need to assign the value to the damage. And
So this is hitbox.
that's all when it comes to the hitbox. Let's move to the hardbox for now. Let's set the class name, and this will be the hardbox. And the hardbox will emit the signal anytime when the damage is taken. So let's call this signal received damage, and let's specify how much damage is received. And one more thing I need to set before we get to the functions is the health variable, which will represent the health component. So if you use the hardbox, that means that you need to also implement health somewhere in the node, because hardbox need the health to just give the damage. You need to have some health to deal damage. You cannot just have a hardbox and don't have a health, because this hardbox will do nothing. So we need to have a health of type health. We created earlier, and I want to export this because I want to async this manually. Of course, we can add the health with this statement or with get node, but probably I don't know the exact path of the health, because some nodes can have different structures than the others. This is because I want to use the export here. I will show you later why this is a good idea and how to use it. And I need a function called on area enter, and as a parameter we want to have our hitbox. This will of course return nothing, and what I want to do is check if the hitbox is really hitbox. This is because on area enter can be used with area 2D objects. So if something entered this area, we are not sure that this is a hitbox type. This can be just an area 2D, but we want to use only hitboxes, so I need to check if this hitbox is really hitbox. And we can do this with this if statement. So now we will call the health and we will get an image. So we need to modify the health variable by writing minus equal the hitbox and the damage variable. And this is why we specify the damage variable here in the hitbox. And I also want to emit the signal. So we specify the damage variable here in the hitbox. And I also want to emit the signal so other nodes will be able.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I can but, then let's try to is the hurt box. Signal receive. I know. If hitbox is not null, it returns. Now health dot health minus equal hitbox dot damage. It is equal hitbox dot damage.
Able to know that object resides some damage, and damage is just a damage variable from the hitbox. And that's all.
Maybe hitbox dot damage.
But we don't have this as we don't add the hardbox every object where you use the hardbox. This is not really useful. Connect this task at all. You just need to. The first one is the entered function. So just type on area entered and we call the parent.
Maybe connect area entered and then on area entered.
Let's save this.
Area entered and then area entered. Well, this was on
This and let's set up these hardboxes and hitboxes. Let's go to the enemy. I have created the hardbox. This icon show you that we need to create a collider here in the hardbox. So let's add a child node, collision shape. I will copy the collision shape from here and paste it here. Okay, let's save the enemy and let's go to the player and let's create the hitbox. We also need to create a collision shape inside it. We can also copy this. Let's move to the hardbox for now.
This is what is on hitbox. Why is it like this? On
To assign the value to them. To bind
and hitbox. Find hitbox. Point dot minus equal hitbox dot
this to the. Let's save this and
on my hitbox. Damage integer 1. Let's try is it check? Yeah, check equal to set damage hit is equal to hit damage. Hit damage hit damage. Hit damage is equal value damage is damage is equal to value becoming bigger than
And that's all when it comes to the hitbox. Let's move to the hardbox for type on area entered, and we're in the hardbox. So let's add a child. We need to create a collision shape inside it. We can also copy this and pass it here. Okay, it's done. One more important thing are collision layers. Let's go to the collision object 2D and let's extend the collision. We have a layer and the mask. With hitboxes, I want to use only the layers. Mask will not be used, so let's uncheck this mask. And how to use layers. Layer 1 means that this hitbox will be recognized on the layer 1. This is a little bit tricky, so pay attention. We'll move to the enemy, and here in the hardbox, I don't want to use layers because this hardbox use only masks.
on player, it is on mask. If an enemy is on layer, so let's go on player.
If our hardbox will have a mask set to the layer 1, and if our player will have a layer set to the 1, that means that this player can deal damage to our enemy. But if I change the layer from 1 to 2 in our player, the player cannot be able to deal damage to the enemy because mask is not set to 2. But here in the hardboxes, we can set multiple masks. Of course, you can set multiple layers here in hitboxes also, but let's back to the hardbox. If you select masks 1, 2, and 3, that means that this will take the damage from any hitboxes placed on layer 1, 2, or 3. So if you set the player to the layer 2, it will deal damage to the enemy because the enemy has the mask 2. If now you will change the player to layer 3, it will also deal damage because we have mask 3 checked here. But if we move to the 4th layer, it will not deal damage to this enemy because enemy move to the layer 4th layer 4 set it here. But the player, it will also deal damage to the enemy because it's useful if you have the layer and the mask for one. Let's save all this. And what we now want to do is to kill our enemy if the health is 0. So let's create a script to the enemy. Let's call it enemy create. We can remove the entire script from it. Click on, and now new function depleted is sent by the health when the health hits 0. And now we can implement logic. I just Hi there, Blaze here.
Does he have some? Oh, here.
Logic, I just want to remove this.
I'm going to open this. Extract to let's see. Let's import this. Sorry, I did go on restroom. Let's see. This is. I think this is. So let's see, huh? This is the player. He does have kind of health component. This what the health component is. Let's see the health. Oh, there's so many of it. Okay. Health component, signal, signal, and then signal is where signal will come from. So on 0.1 margin, there's sprite size, by 2 is this productive size, this productive power movement, let's try to play this first. Did work, but let's see. The one that has a health is the enemy. So this is the enemy. Health depleted. Here. Health depleted, health change, and health max change. Max health change. Max health, set max health, set max health, set max health. Reinforce. Set mortality, set mortality. Mortality timer is for max health. Set health and get set max health. Always yes. And 0 and value. This is a little confusing, to be honest. Immortality. Fighters and immortality here. This is the hitbox. Damage. Hitbox with damage. This is a little bit confusing, so I need to see tutorial here. Mm, mm, on hitbox, we need to hit on click. No. Here on my heart, here on 3, we need area entered on this 3. Help minus equal 1. Then let's say this is supposed to be hitbox. Hitbox. Mm, where is it? Let's try this. Why is the 3 hurt box? No, collision is unable. Try again. Nothing is happening. Why? Mm, it's not mouse entered, but area entered, right? It's supposed to be that, but why is it not entering? Wait, it's not even entering. Print 3.help. Let's see if it can go where. Point, 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 point. It's not working. Not this. I just need to know how I can know how to collision in Godot.
All the assets used in this project are linked as a child of this Area 2D node. Add a collision shape 2D. Create a new shape and reset. Next, select your Area 2D, head over to node on the right side. This will be an enemy IVAC 2D and go and connect it to your player script. This function will be called when the player's Area 2D something like collide object, and then run our project. We can see that it prints whenever we collide with another object. However, the problem with we can if we put a print statement in here and make it say something like collided and then run up. However, the problem with this is we're not
Oh wait, if I if the one if this is the one who got collide on mine, it might be get wrong.
taking into account what the player script and go back down to the area 2.
Uh so I really need to know the then I guess I need to know how to how I don't know why there's some kind of
And in today's tutorial, I'm gonna show which contains sprite enemies. See that you can implement this. I want to show how to implement health as a component. So if you click on the add child node, they will appear here somewhere in the node 2D. So let's create a new folder in the resources. Let's call it components. And I will create script named health. And this will inherit the node, just a node. This doesn't need to be the node 2D because health don't need a position on the word. So let's go with node, let's create, and now we can open this health GD. We can leave the extend node because we will need this. And we want to specify the class name, and the class name is health. Now when you save this script and go to the add child node, you can search for the health at the top. It doesn't matter this icon here. Okay, so we have health in the player. We want to add also the health to edit our health. Okay, so I want to show you how to implement this in the way that can be used across multiple games. Of course, this is maybe not the final project of the entire health system. Maybe and probably you will want to make some changes to adjust it into your project. But I used this script in my game. I used similar logic in my latest game created with Unity. So I think that this can be really useful in the final project. I will start with signals. What I want to signal is the information that the health changed, and I want to specify the difference, or you can go with just a diff. This will be shorter of the type of int because I want to create my health system basing on the ints. You can do this on the floats, but int seems easier to implement and I don't like to use float numbers for health. 2 or 3 health instead of 1.4. It's just easier for me, but do what you want. Another signal I want to send is that health is depleted. And that means that the health is over and we need to remove the player or enemy from the map. One more signal, similar to the health changed, but to the max health. I will explain you what is max health later in this video, but I also want this signal because I want to know when the max health will change. And also I will report the difference in ints. Okay, so let's move to the variables. I want to create earlier mentioned max health, and let's go with default value as 3. The max health is the maximum health amount that the player or the enemy can have, and the max health is also the initial value for me. Also, we will use the health, which represents the actual value of health. So if the health value goes to the 0, that means that the enemy or the player don't have any health left, but the max health will not change as long as you don't want to implement something like special abilities to change the maximum health. For example, like in the Terraria, when you eat the health crystal, your max health will increase, and this is the only example when the max health will change. And the health is also int, and it needs to be set to the max health, but for this to work, you need to specify this as onReady. What I also want to do is export this max health, so I can change this by clicking on health and setting this here. Without this export key, I won't be able to set this by clicking on health. Okay, another variable I want to export also is information about the immortality, and default is set for false. And what is immortality used for? I used this in my game when I respawn the player and I want it to be immortal for a few seconds after respawning, or in some animations. So this is when you can use immortality. And as I said, sometimes I use timed immortality, for example, for 1 or 2 seconds. So I'll also need the timer for this immortality. And at the beginning, it's set for null. Now I want to create the functions that will modify this max health, immortality, or health, but I also want them to be the properties of these variables. So to implement both the functions and the properties, we can do this the easy way. Let's create the function that modifies the max health, and let's name it setMaxHealth. This will get a value of type int. For now, let's set a pass, it doesn't matter. And let's create a function that get the max health, and it just return the max health. You can set the return also here. And now I want to use these properties, so let's add it to the
I still don't understand that much.
exported variable max health by assigning these functions to the set and get right after the export variable using
Get max.
double comma. Okay, so let's do the same with immortality, and I can set the return also here. And now I want to use these properties, so let's add it to the exported variable max health by assigning these functions to the set and get right after the export variable using double comma. Okay, so let's do the same with immortality and health. For now, let's set a pass, it doesn't matter. And let's create a function that get the max health, and it just return the max health. You can set the return also here. And now I want to use these properties, so let's add it to the exported variable max health by assigning these functions to the set and get right after the export variable using double comma. Okay, so let's do the same with immortality and health.
What does set and get?
Immortality, for example, will just set the immortality variable to the value provided. And for get, it will just return the immortality. So you can also remove these setters and getters and use only the variable, but I want the immortality to be accessible like a variable, but also like a function, because sometimes I use this, sometimes I use this. One more with health. For health and max health, setting is a little more interesting, and this is because I use these setter functions. So let's start with implementing max health setter. First, we want to clamp the value because we want the max health to be at least 1, and we don't want to specify the maximum value for this health. You also can display an error here. The line below, you can print the statement that, hey, this is an error because you set the max health to the 0 or lower. But I just want to clamp this value in the case if something go wrong. So yes, we will set the 1 if the value is 0 or lower, and if not, we will just set the value. Now let's check If the clamped value is not the max health, so we need to add the not here, that means that the clamped value isn't equal to the max health, so the max health is changed. I want to check this because if max health is set to the same value it has now, I don't want to send signal max health changed. I want to send this signal only if health really changed. So if health changed, I want to send signal, but I also need to specify the difference, so I will calculate the difference. And if you will use this order, so clamped value minus max health, you will get the difference with the sign corresponded to the exact difference. So if I have the max health at 3 and set
I don't understand.
Inheritance and composition are dual class. You can first off, I'll add a new node 2D to the enemy and call it health component. Ready function, I will set health to max health. Then I'll add a damage function and take in an attack from last video and subtract that damage from the health. Then if the health ever drops below 0, the parent will free itself.
Should I? Oh wait, let's see. This is new.
I made a simple scene. I used Kenny's Tiny Town and for our health. Export variable max health, so we can change it in the editor. And also we have an onReady variable health, and we set it to the max health. Also created a function for applying damage, and I created a new signal, and we will check if the health is below or equal to 0, we will emit the signal. Also, I added an input function for debug purpose, so when I press space or enter button, I will apply damage. Now we can create a new scene. I will use a control node, and I will call it health bar display. I added to progress will show the enemy from come to bar. I will save the scene. Hold the control to the health components, make them for our health bar display assign. It's not working. Why? My bad, sorry. Don't forget the twin will be under the if condition. Now it's working. As you can see. Also, I made the same thing for my enemy. Now it has
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and when tutorial series feedback. So we've got height over. I have a recent video that talks about these components are essentially just nodes that perform some. These components, stats component here, you can see I have documented this component with some notes. So at any point when we're using one of these components, you can go in and look at the notes to see how this script works. But we're also going to be creating a few components here. So let's click back on our ship. And the first component we're going
Let's see.
I have a script here and a sprite 2D. I'll show you the script in just a second here, and I rename it to test. Go ahead and add it. Health, be all caps. Let's look at what I have. I have a variable that's called health, and it's equal to 3. And then if I push the action just pressed, and it's UI accept, which is basically enter, and then I minus the health that delete the create. Then do to display the word important, and then we're gonna do plus dot health. All right, one last thing we need to, and then we're gonna dive into the font sizes. And so we're gonna do here 2D our test. We can see his health. Simply minus that again, 1, 2, 3. There you go. And that is even key would do. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit that subscribe.
That's a little bit. I can't get it. Don't it pray. Is it because I still don't know that much about yeah. It's just let's just go on Python for now. I still don't know that much about Python. Wait. In Python, or should I use the one on? Does yeah, this made the introduction on GitHub
more. So I right click on it and I want to change the type. I don't want a node 2D as well. For the next major part, we are going to create an area 2D. And to use an area 2D properly, we are also going to have to talk about signals. I'll cover that in just a second. First of all though, a bit of a recap. Here is an overview of all of the collision body 2Ds. So far, we have used a static body 2D and we have used a character body 2D. Those two, I think at this point, should at least
emit. This emit is what I need also. I don't need lights, the animation. Twins. Sorry for that. Emit and twins. And disconnecting thing. And inheritance. Wait,
enemy. With the lasers and the grenades in place, we can work on the scout health. Basically what we want to do is that the scout has a hit function. But this one doesn't really matter because the scout doesn't have health. Which means we want to give him some health and then reduce that health whenever he is hit. On top of that, we are going to need a timer, and you will see very soon why. But for now, let's implement the basic damage mechanic. Once again, back in Godot, first of all, I want to close the grenade scene. Then I can work inside of the scout, and for the scout, I want to make the inspector a bit smaller. Also, what you can do is this little arrow is hiding all of the open code, which is giving me in particular a bit more space. I assume you are working on a larger monitor, so you probably don't need it, but if you work on a laptop, this can be super useful. At the moment, we are printing scout was hit as soon as we're calling the hit method. But that isn't going to be enough. Instead, I want to create another variable that we can call health. This one has to be an integer, and the value is kind of random. I'm going to go with 30. Once again, choose values that you like. And basically, all that we have to do, if this scout was hit, we want to get the health and then subtract it by a certain amount. Let's say 10 for this one.
Okay.
After that, if health is smaller or equal than 0, and if that is the case, I want to destroy the node with Q3.
Okay.
And that should be all we need. If I now shoot at the scout 3 times, he disappears. So this is working really well, and this was incredibly easy. But there is an issue. and let me run the entire game again. If I now shoot a grenade at the scout disappears immediately. The reason for that is that we're calling the hit function from the grenade inside of the process function, which means we are calling it multiple times per second. And since every call of the hit method is reducing the health by 10 amounts, we are destroying the scout after 3 frames of the game, which is incredibly fast. That is about 1/10 of a second. And that would make the grenades way too strong, meaning we have to find some other way to work with this. And the way you usually see this is that once any kind of entity has been hit, this could be the scout or a player, doesn't really matter, as soon as they have been hit, there's going to be a short timer during which they are invulnerable. This is going to be a very short amount of time, let's say less than half a second. That way, if we have something like a grenade that continuously calls the hit method, we have at least some kind of delay between calling this method. Implementing something like this is actually not that difficult logic, so that the scout can only be damaged every half second. Pause the video now, and first of all, I want to hit a hit 0.5. Auto start shouldn't be out, and which is apply to that we have to type set it to true. Then I can remove some white space by default, and on start end, he only disappears. He actually doesn't disappear at all, so I have to shoot at him. Okay, he is completely invulnerable, and I think I know why. So we don't need the process function. The issue right now is that we are only running, or we are only reducing the health if the scout is vulnerable. But then inside of the on-hit timer, we're never setting vulnerable back to true. So vulnerable should be true once the timer ticks out. And now this should be working. So let's try a grenade again. And the scout disappears after 1.5 seconds. Perfect. So this one is working just fine. And on top of that, now our scout scene is significantly better organized. But right now we have a problem. Let me close the scout, and I want to look at the player. If I run the entire game again, I can shoot the grenade, and this still makes the scout disappear as well. For the next major part, we are going to create an area 2D. And to use an area 2D properly, we are also going to have to talk about signals. I'll cover that in just a second. First of all, though, a bit of a recap. Here is an overview of all of the collision body 2Ds. So far, we have used a static body 2D and we have used a character body 2D. Those two, I think at this point, should at least be somewhat doable. For this video, I want to work on an area 2D. Which, as a reminder, is simply an area that can check if another body has entered. It can also check for other things, but I want to keep it simple for now. Ultimately, what we're going to build is an inside area entrance, and the area 2D is going to check if the player has entered this area. That being said, there is a problem we have to talk about. Right now, we can use an area 2D, but it would be pointless. It would simply be an invisible area that can't do anything. As a consequence, we have to learn about some extra functionality so that the area can actually do something. That functionality is called signals. And signals are incredibly important. Basically, what they are doing, when a certain action happens to a node, for example, a body entering an area, it could also be a timer running out or two bodies colliding and a whole host of other options. If that happens to a node, then the node can call a piece of code somewhere in your script. And this is called a signal. So essentially, whenever a certain action happens to a node, the node can trigger some code. That's basically all that's happening. This is also incredibly powerful to make nodes communicate with each other and make your game more interactive. Back in Godot, I want to start by cleaning things up a bit. Most importantly, I want to delete the drone, the billboard, and the bat, because we don't need them right now. Pretty good. Cool. this is what we have. By the way, a sprite we have, if the player idea is a bit, we're going to add a lot of, so I don't use it too often. But basically what we have is an entrance area. What you do want to be aware of is that only this part of the area is supposed to be visible. If the player can see the area in the back, it's going to look a bit broken. But the idea is that all of this is collidable, and then in just a bit, we're going to add some walls or obstacles around these areas surrounding it. That way the player can never get to this back bit. For now, I want to move the entrance area a bit up, like so we can see it a bit better in our current scene. And later on, when we have the camera, all of this is going to be much more visible. But for now, don't worry too much about it. We need to see the entrance, this bit. So let me run the game. And there we can see we have an entrance area. Although it doesn't do anything right now, because it is literally just an image. Also, I want to have this below the player, so the player is on top of it. That's feeling a little bit better. Once again, don't worry too much about it for now. With that, we have an image, but there are two things we have to.
I'm really lost. How do I do this?
To work on for now. Number one is we have to add the collisions for these parts here that are supposed to be collidable. As a matter of fact, if I roughly, and then we have the rest of the collidable area. For that, we have to learn about a new node, because now we have a more irregular collision shape. After we have that, we can add an area around the player enters it. But that comes next, first of all, which once again is going to be a static body 2D. And this static body 2D is going to get the, so we once again reestablish the drawing order, where the gate is below the player. To need a collision shape. And there you can already see we have a collision. Now we have selected collision. We are instead, we have added by selecting, and let me keep for shape that covers the area. Like I zoom in. When it isn't looking, be working. Mechanic for to keep up the line takes up so much space, but it is definitely working. Nice. With that, I can rename this static body, getting a warning. So let's create a rectangle, and it's looking okay. Doesn't do anything. I still have the collision, so it doesn't influence the game. And signals you can see on the right under the node tab. If you click on that, you get signals. We could also check for another area entering or exiting. We could check if an area shape has entered. We could check for a whole range of other things. And these kind of signals are available for every node, although every node has different kinds of signals. For example, if we click on the player, we have signals, for example, for input or mouse entered or exited, but they are not as useful. If I click on the level, we get even fewer. For example, in there, we have tree, or if it exited the tree. Area 2D is one of the nodes that has most of the signals that you actually care about. To actually use a signal, you have to double click on it. So have a dialog. Essentially, what is going to happen? When this body entered is triggered, we are running a function somewhere. And this function we can only run when we have a script. So we have to connect this signal to some kind of code inside of this scene. Right now in the scene, we have two nodes with a script. We have the level and we have the player. I want to connect it to the level, which means with the level selected, you can see it, we have a script there. I want to click on connect. Although before I do that, you could also rename the function we are going to call. And now we have a function inside of the level. So inside of this node, inside of the script of this node to be more specific, we have a function via 2D. Symbol that says node has one connection. If this is the case, I want to print, let's say body has entered. And now if I run all of this, we already get body has entered. And if I go into this area a couple of times with the player, you can see we get body has entered multiple times. The reason why we are getting area when the game is started.
Wait, the bullet. The bullet.
We have area 2D, static body, laser, these, because the
Oh, here.
file with and in there I'll get for that. This collision should move the image. That's looking mostly okay. Really well working game. Pretty good start. This seems real. In there, I want to create a new folder. There, we have created a scene. Next up, we have to create an instance of this scene in the new use this laser inside of the level, triggering the on-player laser event. For that, we have to go through two steps. First of all, we have to preload the scene we have just created. And this happens all the way at the top. I want to create a new variable. Let's call it var laser scene. And to preload a scene, we need the function preload. And this preload wants to have a scene. Since we do have quite a lot of stuff in there, you usually just want to type the name of the scene, and then Godot is quite intelligent about it and gives you the scene. Make sure that the ending is TSCN. This is a scene. If you have PNG or anything other than TSCN in there, something probably went wrong. You can be even more aggressive about it and force a certain data type. The data type we're looking for here is called a packed scene. So now we have a scene ready that we can use. What we have to work on next is we have to create an instance of the scene. This is turning the actual scene into a node that we can use in our current scene. That is actually quite easily done, and I want to do all of that inside of onPlayer laser. All I want to do in here is create a new variable that I'm going to call laser. And this laser is going to be an instance, run the method instantiate on it. Part 2 of our requirement. All that is left to a simple function is going to be the laser. With that, we should be good to go. Let me run the game and let's just see what happens. If I now click on the button, you can see we have the laser. The reason it is up there is because, well, inside of the laser, we always are in the top left point and we don't update this position. Because of that, we always have the laser in this point and it's not moving. So we do have to make some updates, but it's certainly a go. If I go back to the standard view, if the game is running like it is right now, so I can still run around perfectly fine. Look on the left. There is, besides local, game is running. And this shows you in real time what is happening inside of the game.
Oh yeah,
So right now we have root. This is a technical part, but then we have the level. This is this level scene. Inside of there, we have the gate and we have the player. These are the two nodes we have added ourselves. But after that, we have the laser 4 times. And if I go back to the game and I keep on clicking, we add more and more lasers. So we can tell in real time, this is showing you what's going on in your game, which is incredibly helpful to debug your game.
Yeah.
Also, when you click on them, you can look at the inspector and get a lot of information about what's going on. Close the game because we don't need it right now. Number 1, the most important thing is we have to update the laser position. Right now, the laser spawns in the top left, and well, that's a problem. That's a bit smaller to a level scene itself, which tends to get much cleaner is if we add another node to. I want to add the lasers to this node. That way, the entire scene itself keeps much cleaner. But we're going to work on that in more detail later. And that in the position, good on the position, and then get the position of the player. I'm going to be on the position of my player. Perfect yet. Create a problem. Which isn't realistic. Ideally, which are to get a couple. I want to order. I'm going to hold another node to the center. Literally looks on control. I can do this supposed to be. I want to random, and that is going to be the actual inside of selected markers. For that, first of all, much easier. Markers. This is just going to be a node 2D right now. Although we start maybe select this in a new children. What the code we can get with the method get children. This is just going to be a node 2D right now. Although this node 2D has children. And these children we can get with the method get children. Once we have that, I can simply print the laser markers, and let's see what we get. If I now run the code and I click, we are getting a list inside of the output with 3 markers. We have marker 2D, another marker 2D, and a final marker 2D. This I also want to store in a variable, let's case. So on that, we want to use int one. This was that bit weird. Then we need the highest number, the size, laser. Some kind of marker. There is some randomness, although since we don't have too many nodes, it's going to be a bit hard to see. But there you can definitely tell we get random markers. There are other ways to create randomness, but rand I, then for your crosshair throw, position already designated position. I want to also, as an argument, include selected laser. We are emitting a position on player laser, be the position as the laser position. Let's try all of this now. However, you can see at the perfectly
Where's the hit?
now. You house. Why this should be, and we are all we want. Once again, don't. So this is the variable. Okay. To the inside. Finally, add child to. Don't forget to act. You can now see if I move the game to the side and let me direct script was attached to, which is this node 2D right now. I get really no D. So you can change it easy. Want to child. This node to do is get a node itself. So let me drag in the projectiles, actually add the child, which is going to be the laser, and then we are good to go. If you can now see, if I move the game to the side, inside of projectiles, we have a drop down and
value equals to total time. We're also going to say current time equals total time. Because if you want, you can export the total time and change it, and it won't affect the current time. So you only have to change this thing in one spot. So if you want 15, you only have to change it here versus having like 15 here and et cetera, right? So this is just make our life a little bit easier. All right, and then in our process function, we're going to say,
Yeah, to be honest, let's go gaming first. Okay. I'm going to later we will finish this. Oops, I forgot. how can I make it so that the weapon can no this collision shape or the hitbox can hurt the hurt box or damage the hurt box? How can I make it? It's all on a script. So I need also the health. I can't use the hurt box and hit box without health. But I did try it. I think on 3 here. He does have health already. But ah, let's let's see more. Let's see more of the script on Godot. No, let's see more tutorial on how to make the health before. Wait. I think I should delete this first. Hitbox, a hitbox, and the hurtbox. I should have health first before doing all of that.
If current time is smaller than 0,
Wait. How to use class in Godot? There's a last thingy here. Here at 3.
Parameters. So in this case, I'm going to copy all of the. I'm going to do this by. I'm going to inherit my class. Inherit. You can see that we're extending. Now, if I open up this script, which is called my class inheriting, and we're going to call this of our node 2D, we 2D. And if we by the, say we make a new scene here, we can add a new child node, and you can see that if we search for my class, we have this new node, the script that we created of our node 2D. We can go into the inspector panel, and you can see that our health object that logic that needs to be shared between different instances of now and then take damage any functionality. We have a class called choppable tree, and this essentially contains
choppable tree. Oh, he did create a hurt box. This is the hurt box, but he did create it himself. Progress bar that max value is equals to health. Progress value is equals to health. Hurt box that damage taken that donate on hurt, but hurt box damage taken. Damage. Here's the amount.
Contains a box to a scene from that, but class I have a maple tree from scene. Set the health. I'm gonna make it set the health. Well, you could, because in a they're the same case, I'm going to name still a bit small. Now I can MapleTree same function, use classes in the past, but essentially what that would do
Can be a class name Choppable Tree. Is the one that I want to. Oh, oh, you can make an expert herd box and something like this. Then just drag this herd box here. Oh, oh, okay, okay, later. But will now it's time for me to edit this now.